Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you all for joining this KMGN research community event. So as I was telling Patrick, so we usually have an event every quarter. So we
Mhm.
have um, uh, yeah, usually 3 or 4 per year.
Mm,
And let me just share my screen real quick, just
mhm,
to give. I mean, we currently have. Moria emailed me. She won't be able to join today, but we
mm,
currently have around 320 members on this KMGN research community. So,
mm,
which is a good number. Of course, not everyone can attend all
right.
events, but
Mhm,
we have a pretty good team. So again, the idea is to bring academics, but also practitioners together to share any form of research, very practical or more
mm,
theoretical in progress or already published. To share with the community and have a discussion around this. So we have
mhm,
also a WhatsApp group, and I will share
oh,
again for those of you who are not part of it. If you want to join, which always send reminder or information about the next speaker. So you can
mm,
also feel free to join. So these are the past speakers that presented. So there are 15 of them
mm,
over the past 3 years now.
right. Wow. Okay.
We also have a KMGN research community YouTube channel, so where
Mm,
you can look at past presentations. So this one is also recorded and will be later on shared
mm,
through the platform if some of you send their AI note taker. So be aware that in, let's say, in a week from now, it will also be shared through the platform. So
mm,
we have two more for this year. So we will have Slajana Cabrillo that will be with us on September 10th.
mm,
That will talk about the future of intellectual capital, and she wrote a book about it, or edited a book
mm,
around this, which is quite interesting. And we'll
mm.
have also Salim Sombal, that you might know also,
Yep, I know him.
probably,
Yep.
Patrick, yes,
Yes.
who's at Hong Kong Polytech University, and this will
Mhm,
be our last event for the year. But
right.
today we are very honored to have you with us, Patrick. So Patrick
Mm, thank you.
is based in Australia, and yeah, it's a late evening already. It's 10 p.m. for him, and so yeah, I will not say much more about it. We are really thankful that you accepted to share your research with us, and we are all looking forward to hear from your presentation today.
Mm,
If you have questions, feel free to ask a question through the chat, or later on we will have time at the end for Q&A. We will just see a bit how things happen, or if there are really urgent questions, you can also just yeah, raise your hand and we'll give you the mic.
mm.
Thank you,
Okay.
Patrick. So the screen is yours, and we are all looking forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So thank you, Vincent, for the introduction, and let me load the presentation. Okay. So share. Okay, so can you all see the slide on your screen?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Okay, that's great. Okay, uh, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, no matter where you are. Would be interested to know where are you from, and so my name is Patrick Fong. So I moved to Australia just over 2 years ago, in November 2023. So before that, I was in Hong Kong working at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. So that's why earlier Vincent mentioned about the other speaker. I actually know him when I was in Hong Kong. So today I'm privileged to have this opportunity to share a research that I carry out uh, recently, last 2 years, and I got a paper just published about a few months ago. So at the end of the slide, I will share with you where you can download this paper because it's open access. So feel free to download it. And here you can see I'm currently working at Griffith University in Australia. We have different campus. I am at the best campus. which is the Gold Coast campus with the best weather, the best surfing. People come here for surfing for holiday. So we have a lot of hotels and different kind of service apartment where people can stay. So next time, if you come here for holiday, please give me a heads up so you can see my email here. So I'm currently an associate professor in the School of Engineering and Built Environment. I'm also affiliated to this Griffith Institute for Human and Environmental Resilience. I need to mention that I'm actually half construction and half management because I got my degree, my master in construction. I'm actually also a qualified surveyor by profession, but I chose to do my PhD in a business school in the area of organizational behavior. So that's why when I look at myself, I always say I'm half construction, half management. And also, if you look at my publication, you also see that a lot of paper are not written about construction. I basically just try to look at knowledge from different perspective, different angle, different industry. So today my talk is about from job site stories to reusable know-how. So on this topic, I basically research and look into a pedagogical framework here called STOKMS. I pronounce it as stocks. Okay. So this is basically a story-based knowledge management system, which I use to capture and reuse tacit knowledge in construction. Although here I say construction, but basically we can apply these ideas in all walks of life. Okay. Okay, so this is basically, you can say, is today's agenda. Basically, we'll look at all this. So first one, why tacit knowledge is hard in construction? I believe this question can apply to other area as well, because I think in many different industry or many different settings, capturing tacit knowledge is not easy. If you remember this famous iceberg, the those above the water, we call it explicit knowledge. Those below the water, we call it the tacit knowledge, which we believe that this tacit knowledge is the big chunk, is the majority below the water. So basically, I think one of the key feature about construction is project based. So people work in projects. When the project finish, they move on to another project. So I find it interesting is because people, when they work in project, it's just like the diagram below. You can see that different projects are like different islands. So you can see that a group of people from different background, different discipline, they work together. And when the project finishes, they all disband and move on to other projects. And I find that in construction or some other project-based industry, this kind of situation happen a lot is there's no bridges or tunnel or whatever way to connect all these different islands. So basically one mistake made in one project and you will find that in the next project, the same mistake happen again. So that's why
Wonderful, virtual management.
I'm curious to learn about how we can capture this kind of tacit knowledge in construction because we believe that tacit knowledge is the important part because those knowledge which already externalized that capture in document we can just read it easily because those knowledge that are in the kind of explicit form they're not very rich because they already, I mean, tell you about the decision, but it doesn't tell you how to get to that decision, what kind of problem they encounter, what kind of like workaround they need to work through in order to get to the final point. And another situation is mobility. People in construction, they move from project to project. And another phenomenon is retirement. In many, many countries, we are facing this aging population. A lot of people, they're retiring, especially those what we call the baby boomer. So when people walk out of the office, the knowledge will go with them. Okay. So here I put it knowledge that lives in people's head. So when people retire or when people change jobs, the knowledge go with them. Okay, because this kind of tacit knowledge, we can't download it, we can't capture it. So that's why I'm interested to look into tacit knowledge. And I know that storytelling is a very effective and natural way of capturing this tacit knowledge. So that's why I'm interested to study about stories and storytellings. Because basically I find that story can preserve the kind of context, the kind of cues, emotion, and also how people make decision and also the outcome. Okay, if we compare with those SOP, standard operating procedure, all these things will be missed out. They just list out how we do things, and all these emotions, everything will be missing. So in this research, I propose this STOKS framework, STOKMS, Storytelling Knowledge Management System. And at the end, I will show you 2 case studies, and also I will show you a step-by-step implementation checklist. You can call it a playbook, so that you can apply in your own organizational setting. So basically, in any industry, we are not only relying on explicit knowledge, we mostly rely on tacit knowledge. So many of us know that when we build a knowledge management system, they're usually built for documents. They're not for what we call the kind of lived experience. Okay. So because we find that tacit knowledge is experiential, based on experience. So that's why we always compare if someone with 10 years experience with someone who just graduated, you can see there's huge difference because the experience, the knowledge that person got is different from the one who just graduated from college. And also is intuitive and also context dependence. That's why when we talk about knowledge, we need to talk about context. You cannot just ask someone to write down something or to ask someone, what do you know? You need to give this person some kind of context. And so the kind of traditional capturing method, for example, interviews, menus, videos, they only capture part of this knowledge. And through this, it actually losing the favor of why and how. Okay, so that's why we find this traditional capturing method is not effective. So that's why in this study, I look into this about storytelling and how to use story to capture this tacit knowledge. So here mentioned again, so basically in construction, we have this mobility issue and also people working on the project, they basically belongs to this what we call a temporary project teams. So they only come together for the project 3 years, 5 years. After that, it disband. Okay. So basically, a lot of things happening across the whole project life cycle. At different stages, people learn different things, make different mistakes, etc., etc. So that's why at different life cycle of the project, there's always something we can learn from it. So when we look at this right-hand side, you can see, for example, this is what I call the tacit moment. For example, if someone go to the site, for someone who is experienced, they will look around to see there's any safety hazard or there's anything unsafe or something like that. Okay, and or if say someone who work on a site on a project, they know, oh, there's some situation happen, they know who to call and also when to escalate the issue, because sometimes the person who deal with the issue may not be able to help to resolve it because they may not have the authority, etc., etc. So they need to know who to call, how to escalate that issue. And for example, if say someone working on a construction and then suddenly finds there's something different, for example, when they start digging on the ground and then they find something hidden there, then they need to change the way they do things. So if someone who is experienced, they probably know how to do it. If someone who is very fresh, very green, they probably don't know what to do. Okay, so this is what I call the tacit moments. Okay, so basically, if you ask me to explain, I would say that tacit knowledge is basically the accumulation of experience, intuition, and skill. Okay, so basically, when you make certain judgment call in a certain situation, when you use heuristic, when you try to make sense of something, these are all I will call them as tacit knowledge. So basically, this is a kind of common form in any project. So we, for example, using our know-how to solve problem, we based on our expertise, we know because I mean, in any situation, there's always a lot of noises. They're not important thing, but they probably obscure us in making our decision. So if someone who is experienced, who can tell what's are the noise, what are really matter for that situation. Um, and also, for example, when you work with someone, you also build up this kind of tacit knowledge. If someone with certain kind of personality, how you deal with them. If some other person who is very quiet, then you probably know what kind of method you need to use. Those are also a kind of tacit knowledge built through experience. Okay. So it's basically tacit knowledge is hard to capture because they are not codified and they're very hard to articulate. So they usually sit inside some kind of story. So if you ask someone to tell you how to do something, they may find it a bit hard. But if you ask them to tell you, to give you a story, then probably they find it much easier. And also, for example, if we are looking at some kind of very sensitive situation like safety issue or failures, um, using stories to capture that kind of knowledge probably is much easier than other form. Okay. Of course, later on, I will mention that if we want people to share that kind of sensitive kind of knowledge, we probably need to create a kind of what I call psychological safety. People feel safe, then they will be open up to share what they know or what kind of mistake they make. Okay. Sometimes people may hold the knowledge because they don't have trust or sometimes because of job issue, especially if say the economy is not good, company designing to maybe reduce the number of staff at that time, then people feel that there's some kind of threat to the job security. Then in this case situation, there will be this kind of knowledge hoarding. Actually, interestingly, I published a few paper a few years ago, and then now I find that there's always a lot of papers about knowledge hoarding, knowledge hiding. And so there's so many papers I almost see like one every day, literally. Okay. So when we talk about tacit knowledge, it's like the kind here I use an analogy, like it's like a kind of traffic signal in the head. So in this tacit knowledge, in this story, if we give out what I call the cues, the decision and also the kind of consequence. So if you compare with the kind of standard operating procedure or manual or the kind of written information, you find that this kind of information will not be there. They will always tell you just the decision, the outcome, but without all the cues, the decision, the consequence, or sometimes even the emotion. So why this tacit knowledge can be, I mean, lost so easily? Because I mean, probably I already mentioned, construction is temporary. People just come together, and then when the project finish, they disband. And also, there's so many different organizations work together. So we have some very fragmented organizational structure. And also in construction, as you know, we use a lot of what we call the subcontractors to carry out different tasks in the project. And also in construction, people moving around. Today they work on this project. Tomorrow they can be working on another project. Also because for many countries, we have this demographic shift. So a lot of experienced people, they are retiring around this time. So you can imagine if we have more people retiring than more people joining, then we basically has this kind of deficit situation. Okay. So of course, and also when people retire, they may not have the opportunity or the channel to pass on their knowledge to the young people. So the result is we can repeating the kind of mistake we make, causing a lot of what we call rework. So when something is done wrong, we need to redo it. And also it probably slow down our problem solving situation because we basically, without having some kind of precedent or some kind of example to look at every time we treat this problem as something new. Okay, so traditional knowledge management, we capture like through interviews, surveys, we ask people about what they know, etc., etc. This is good structure, but often very superficial, and also it's restrictive in the kind of natural expression, okay? Uh, or we can use manuals, standard operating procedures, but they usually just put down what we call the explicit steps, but they didn't give out any cues, exceptions, judgment, etc., etc. Video recording is good, it's very rich, but of course very costly, because when someone try to produce a video, it's require quite a lot of resources, and also try to maintain it is not easy. And also another issue for videos is privacy sensitive. If someone is going to talk about something very sensitive, probably this person doesn't want to show his or her face. So, and also another thing about video is very difficult to search and also to reuse. So what kind of text we use to tag that video, that's also make it very difficult. Mentoring, that's a very good way of transferring knowledge. I think it's being used in a lot of company, but also it's not scalable, and also is probably more on a one-to-one basis. So it has very little impact to the whole organizational memory. In terms of community of practice, forums, of course, it's also a good way of passing on knowledge, but of course, you need to create this kind of trust. There are many this kind of community of practice or online forums, and people find that if, say, you have like 500 people in that forum, there's maybe only 15, 20 people are very active. Most of the people in the forum, they call themselves the lookers. They just, I mean, saw people's message, but they never respond. Um, we also have another way that we can use to capture knowledge, which is quite common, especially used in the kind of, well, I think in the past it's used a lot in the kind of military situation, but now after action review are also being used by company as well. But this is usually what we call event bound, and also after action review is very thin on emotion. Okay, so basically they just uh, capture what's not doing good, and so next time how we should do it, etc., etc. There's not a lot of clues or decision or how people really make use their judgment within this AAR. So basically, storytelling, some people say, oh, what is storytelling? Is it some kind of casual chat? No, storytelling is basically is different from just the kind of normal chatting. So in this study, I basically will capture the story, structure them, and also the most importantly, to tag them, because without proper tagging, you cannot find them, and if you can't find them, we cannot reuse it. So that's why this tagging, or later I will mention about this metadata, is extremely important in order for someone to search, to locate those useful knowledge so that they can reuse it. And then in this case, I will try to store these stories into this knowledge management system. So basically, you can say that there are some kind of searchable artifacts. It can be in text form, can be in audio form, can be in video form. So, and also usually we translate those story into some kind of written format as well. So after we store it in the KMS, the most important part is for reuse and also to learn. Recently, I went to quite a few different conferences, basically talking about lessons learned. Okay, so a lot of people think, oh, we capture the lessons, we put it into the system, then they define this as lessons learned. But it's not, because if you just capture the lessons without changing the behavior or changing how you practice, this is not learning. This is, you can just say, lessons capture or something like that. Okay, so the same for knowledge management. If we just capture it without reuse it, there's no use. It's just a waste of money. Okay, so that's why the reuse part, the learning part is probably the most important. We can use these lessons for or this knowledge for onboarding when someone new join the company. We can use it as a kind of training, etc., etc. Or we can even use this kind of long story or learning for interview. We give the candidate some kind of scenario and test their knowledge about how to solve those scenario. Of course, we can also use these stories for toolbox talks or design review, etc., etc. So basically, there's a lot of usage of this kind of um, story that we store in the KMS. Okay, so the most important part is we reuse it and we learn from it so that we can improve the future practice. Okay. Okay, so in this research, basically I use this free research question. How can storytelling be used to capture tacit knowledge in construction project? You can change the word a little bit and try to apply in your setting. So what kind of barrier does storytelling address compared to traditional KM method? So I would like to look at to see what's the difference, to see whether storytelling, is it really better than the other method? And the next one is how can storytelling be systematically integrated into an organizational knowledge management system? That's very important, okay? Because if you, because I mean, currently probably a lot of company, they already got the knowledge management system. So instead of creating another new KMS, we probably to also use this story to form part of this knowledge management system. So my contribution in this project is I create this construction-specific storytelling-based knowledge management system, which I call it STOKS, STOKMS. So I use a structure four-phase implementation pathway. I also using two contrasting cases to validate the finding. And at the end, I create some pedagogical guidance. For example, like prompts, tagging, what kind of governance we need to use, and how to encourage people to reuse it, etc., etc. Okay, so basically, if you ask me to explain this stocks concept in these boxes, will be like this. First, elicit. So basically, create some kind of facilitated storytelling, either in groups or we can, of course, do individual storytelling interview. But the most important thing is to create some kind of psychological safety. Without this psychological safety, people will not openly share their story, especially those stories related to safety issue, related to mistake they make or failures, etc., etc. Then the next one is to capture it. So we basically record it and also we transcribe it, okay, into some kind of text form. So basically, the reason we record it is we try to keep the voice, okay, the original, okay, if someone want to really go back and revisit it. And then we transform it. So we basically create some kind of structure and also to tag it so that in future people can locate it, can find it. Because without this metadata, people may not be able to, because that's probably, I think a lot of people, when they create a file, people find it very difficult to locate it because if you just rely on the file name, that's very limited. So that's why this tagging here is very important. And the next one is to integrate it into some existing knowledge management storage to allow people to search it, to retrieve it, etc., etc. And the last one is for reuse. In terms of training for people for onboarding, review, toolbox talks, self-learning, for interview, etc., etc. There's many, many different ways that we can use it. For example, here we can use it for safety learning, especially you know that construction, a lot of people say it's a very high risk industry because we always get accident, injury, or even fatal situation. And also probably you heard people mention that every 300 near misses happen, there will be one actual accident. So that's why if we can treat this near miss uh, seriously, we can definitely overcome some serious accident that can happen in the future. And another good thing about this is reduce rework. As you know, when you try to redo something, it costs you a lot of resources in terms of money, in terms of time, or even frustration, morale, etc., etc. Faster troubleshooting because you based on this past experience, you can make decision much quicker. And hopefully, I think a lot of people ask why we do knowledge management. Basically, we do knowledge management so that we manage the knowledge so that we can free up the time to be innovative. So that's why I think it's very important this day. One interesting phenomenon here is in Australia, a lot of construction projects, those major projects, if say you are a contractor, you want to bid for the project, you will find that in the tender document, they will ask those tenderer, those people who want to bid for the project, to propose some innovative um, things into the project. So you're not just to finish the project. So the client, the owner of the project also want the whoever win the project to have some innovative idea introduced into the project. Okay. So this day just doing the project right is not enough. You need to be innovative. The same for us. If we keep on using the same old ways of doing things, I think it's not enough. We need to be smarter based on our past experience. We need to try to find some better ways of doing things. So basically, this is a diagram to illustrate the 5 steps I illustrated before. And here I just want to highlight for this feedback loop, basically is through this process, we hopefully to attract more new stories. When people feel comfortable, when they see the effect of story as a good way of externalize this tacit knowledge, many people will be very happy to share their story. And actually, storytelling is not nothing new. It's our natural ability. You can think back when you were young, your parents probably tell you some stories as a way of like warning you about something or encourage you about something. So you can see that stories are in our culture. People always like to tell stories. When you meet up with friends, sometimes they can tell you something which is actually about themselves. But instead of saying themselves, they will say, "Oh, I got a friend," or "I got a relative," or something like that, so that they will not implicate themselves as the author of that story. Okay, so for this storytelling knowledge management system framework, the first phase is knowledge elicitation. So basically, we need to elicit the story. That's the most important part. So first, we need to find out those knowledge holder. Basically, I think in any project, you can just find anyone, ask them to share about their war stories, about the success, about the failure, or about how they deal with a certain situation. Everyone can tell you a few stories. Okay. So second one, we need to facilitate. So in order to make this a safe situation, we usually have a facilitator who will be there to facilitate, whether it will be like a storytelling workshop with by a number of people attending, or you can do a one-to-one. Okay. So basically with this facilitation, it basically try to minimize the harms and also create this psychological safety. And so basically, we need to elicit something rich from these stories, from these narratives. So basically, we usually use some kind of open prompts. So to let people to try to voice out to say as much as they like. So usually they would like tell you about the setting, who are the actors, what's the plot, what's the decision cues, what's the consequence. So usually that's like the flow of a story. Okay. So basically, if someone try to listen to this, they need to hear what's the turning points, what are the surprises, what are the near miss, etc., etc. So these are the kind of very important knowledge that we want to capture. For example, here you can see that I put down several prompts here, which we can use for a one-to-one storytelling interview or in a facilitated storytelling workshop. For example, you ask someone, can you recall a challenging project situation and describe how you approach it? Or ask someone to share an experience where a project didn't go as planned, what did they learn? Okay? Or describe a time when intuition or past experience significantly influence one's decision. Okay, so these are the kind of question, very open-ended, to try to elicit, let that person to tell you all the clues, the decision, the emotion, the kind of things they work around, the consequence, etc., etc. And the next is to capture it. So we identify who is the knowledge holder, then we capture it through recording, can be video, can be audio, and then we transcribe it. So basically, we try to preserve the authenticity and also the emotional context. So basically, in any story, we basically extract this. First, what happened, the plot, and then why it matter, which is the meaning. And then the last one will be the most important part, is what to do next time, the actionable learning. Okay, so these are um, the kind of key plot, key extraction that we try to get from a story. Okay, there's three principle. We try to keep the setting, etc., without removing all those which maybe you think is not important. To reflect, which is to try to surface the tacit, the why, the decision, etc. And the last one is to try to simplify, to convert those transferable story into some kind of artifacts that we can search, we can reuse. The output format can be a story page, can be a very short video clip, can be a transcript, can be a scenario that people can reuse for learning, for training, or even for interviews, and or maybe even from there you can digest it into some kind of checklist. Okay,
Patrick,
yeah,
we just got a question. I will
yeah,
read it for you. So,
okay.
a question from Joshua. Are
Mhm.
there any special skill requirement for those who facilitate the knowledge elicitation, or do they just use a toolkit?
Um, I think for the facilitator will be someone um, who probably need to be listening all the time and also asking the right question. And the most important thing is to create a safe culture so that when you create this safe culture, people are more willing, more open to share the story. So I think these are, I would say, some of the major credential of this facilitator. So probably if say someone want to become this story facilitator, they can attend some um, group facilitation skill, which is a very common method because group facilitation, you can basically use it in any situation, even in meetings, because sometimes people say that if you have a facilitator in the meeting, the outcome will be even better than someone who chair the meeting. Okay, so I hope I answer your question, Joshua. And so I keep moving. So what do story contain? So here I just try to group them into different themes and try to correlate to some existing references. So usually this the theme exists in the story can including innovation, adaptability, risk management, safety, communication, collaboration, some kind of cultural knowledge, learning, knowledge transfer, etc., etc. Of course, if we can collect more story, maybe we can or maybe say in different industry, maybe we have different theme emerge from those stories. Okay. So, and then after we capture those stories, we try to integrate them into the existing knowledge management system. So basically, we try to make the story retrievable and also safe to use. So we need to create a kind of metadata, have some kind of search capability, and also need to have someone who makes sure that the story quality, because I mean, you don't want to put some really low quality story into it. And some people, when they look at it, they find, wow, it's useless. And then probably they lose faith into using story as a way of capturing the kind of tacit knowledge. So basically here I show you this metadata schema. For example, you can define the story into different roles, whether it's spoken by a site supervisor, project manager, engineer, or even some construction worker, etc. So different at which phase this story was captured. You see at the design stage, procurement, site, or handover. So what kind of domain is it? Is it under safety, risk, coordination, quality? So, and then the next part is the quite important one, decision queue. So probably this story is about unexpected soil behavior, or you can use different, I mean, label to describe the kind of queue that we have. And the next one is the outcome. For example, in this case, we avoid any delay or we prevent any near miss. Okay, so these are the outcomes. So basically, by using this metadata, it's probably help us easier to locate the story for reuse. Because if you just use one or two keyword for as tagging, that's probably miss out a lot of stories. So that's why I think in the past when we try to use these tags, sometimes we find it not very effective. And the next phase is very important. When we collect the story, we want to disseminate it, to reuse it, because without this, the story capture is become no use. So we can use it for training, onboarding. So for example, here I give an example. We can use stories as scenario. So you can show it to your colleagues, say, if say you have this scenario, how would you do it? Next, what's your next step, what's your action, etc. And then we can use it for toolbox talks. For example, we can create some near miss stories, cues to notice, or some kind of even micro checklist on something. So we can also use it for design review. So before we go to the next step, we use it to review whether we complete everything or there's anything not right. Okay. So how to keep it alive? Leadership is very important. I think in many things we always say senior management support. So basically the kind of recognition, and also very important to create this no-blame learning culture. Because if people start to sharing their failure story, if people start to pointing finger and use it as like trying to find a scapegoat, it's not going to work. So lightweight cadence, so we capture at milestone, not in the kind of continuous way. Because if you capture the story continuously, people will have like fatigue. They will feel, wow, we are working on the project, you keep on capturing story. So maybe we use milestone. So for example, after the design stage, we conduct some capture some story about the design, and then after maybe tendering, you can have say collect some story focusing on that stage. Okay. And we also need to create some kind of feedback loops. For example, some of the stale story, we should retire it because those story probably you find that they're very, probably from little to no usage. Then probably you can rethink about it. And then of course we need to add new ones. And also the very important part about reuse is tracking. How many people use it? How many people view it? How many people search it? And most importantly, how it change behavior, how this story change, how people make decision in the future, okay? Or even how people cite that they refer to this story so that they avoid something from happening, etc., etc. Okay, so here this slide is basically sharing about what's the difference between these what I propose, these stocks, this story-based KMS, with some other existing techniques like after action review, critical incident techniques, community of practice, knowledge harvesting. So if you can get hold of the copy of my paper, you can look at this table in much detail because there's a lot of information here, which I'm not going to spend time to explain it. So in my study, so basically I use this interpretive design stand, and also I design some kind of procedure so that I make sure that I follow this procedure, have some kind of case protocol, how I collect the data, how I analyze it, etc., etc. So one thing, I'm not just relying on one thing. I'm using this what I call triangulation, using stories, using interviews, using documents so they can triangulate each other, etc., etc. So this is more about how I conduct the research. And here I have got two case study. One is about a bridge project. The other is about a consulting firm which they're facing this retirement wave. A lot of people leaving the company because of retirement. So these are the different roles of people I interview and the number, etc., etc. And also in this table, I'll show you the average years of experience. So you can see that a lot of, especially if you look at the retired engineers, the average experience is 30 years. So there's a lot of experience within each of these retiring engineers. Okay, so let's look at the first project. It's a major bridge project in Hong Kong that was this. So you can see that this research was carried out during the time when I was in Hong Kong. So basically, in this case, I use storytelling to capture, which basically the formal document will miss out. For example, how these engineers make this intuitive judgment when they look at the ground condition, because one of the major issue when working on construction project, the first one is weather. Okay, the second one is the ground. Okay, because when you take on the ground, you don't know what you are going to encounter. Okay, so that's why it requires a lot of judgment. And the second one is this taxi coordination norm. So because someone who is experienced, who know how to coordinate a certain situation. And the last one is this near miss safety cues. Okay, because I mean, in construction, there's a lot of hazardous situation. So if we can prevent and learn from this kind of near miss situation, it can actually prevent some major accident from happening. Okay. Okay, so basically there's three story I collected. So the first one called Soil Saga. Basically the Q is some kind of unexpected soil behavior. So when the engineer look at the ground, look at the soil, they find there's something unexpected, different from the kind of soil report. So the decision is to try to adopt the foundation approach based on the kind of heuristic experience from previous project. So instead of just keep following what they designed originally, he look at the ground condition and start to make changes. So this foundation will basically fit the current kind of soil condition. So the lesson that we can learn from this story is to have stronger early site assessment and also contingency planning. So this is some very important lesson. So we always conduct some site assessment early so that we can have different plan. And also if say, when we start digging on the ground and find that the soil is different, we can have different contingency plan. And the next one is about coordination. So basically the Q is there's miscommunication between the subcontractors. So the decision is some kind of proactive stakeholder coordination plus trust building. So in order to not allowing the situation to deteriorate, so this person actually carry out some kind of proactive stakeholder coordination. So try to coordinate different parties and even have some means to build up the trust, because in construction or in any other industry, trust is very important. So the lessons is to capture this tacit handover micro routines. So this is something that we learn from it. So we make it into some kind of micro routines so that in future we can use it again. So the last one is safety savior. This is a near miss situation. So basically, the person who shared the stories say that they saw this subtle site hazard signal. So basically, this person makes some rapid risk sense making and also talk to a few people. So at the end, they change the near miss situation and prevent it from happening. And then so basically also convert these skills into some kind of drill, and also it may be even some kind of micro checklist so people can use in the future. Okay, so basically this is the flow. Okay, so we have the queues, we have the heuristic, we take these artifacts, we try to put it into some kind of routine. Can be in terms of checklist, can be some kind of talks within the company, or in a project you can share it with different parties. And at the end, the outcome is it can make the project safer, faster, better, etc., etc. Okay, so the second project is about capturing this expertise before retirement. So this engineering consulting firm, they actually facing this retirement exodus. A lot of people reaching that age, probably those people who joined, they're at a similar age now after 30 years. Most of the people in the company, they're retiring from the company. So basically, before letting these people retire, so basically we use the story to capture uh, several different issues. For example, regarding some innovative engineering solution, because some people, they're very good at thinking about this kind of innovative solution. And also we ask some engineer to share about the lessons from the kind of failures and rework. Okay, so that people, when they hear this kind of story, they can prevent from making the same failures or rework. And also create some kind of cultural norm for the people, especially those who work for the company for a long time. They know what's the cultural norm for the company so that they can share that kind of tacit knowledge so that for the young people, they can learn from it. Okay. So basically, we use structural workshop and as well as some one-to-one interviews, and we put this story into the existing digital knowledge management system. And also the company also, before these people retire, they have this succession planning. So they pair these experienced engineers with some junior ones so that they can have this mentorship experience. Okay, so which is very effective because we find that mentoring is probably one of the best way to pass on the knowledge from the experience to the uh, green staff. So I think I can probably skip this one and it just talk about look at these two cases. What are the kind of things that uh, we can get from it? Okay, so the kind of mechanism, the kind of value, and also the kind of boundary conditions. Okay. So basically, I can mention about the boundary conditions. So basically, we found that there are several things to make these storytelling methods successful. First, facilitation. Second, psychological safety. When people feel safe, they are open to share their failure, their not so successful practice. Stewardship. So we need someone to be the champion, and also governance. So someone make sure that the quality of the stories, etc., etc. So we basically what we do is to try to prevent this story library to become a junk drawers. people put all the junk material there, no one use it, and then the storytelling knowledge management system got a bad name. Okay, so this one, it just say, if you're interested, this is what I call implementation playbook. So 6 steps. So first one, to think about where you want to capture this narrative. Uh, so which phases, which stage of the project. Second one, to conduct some facilitated storytelling workshop. Can be 90. I think probably the best would be 90 minutes. 120 probably would be a bit too long for many people. So I would say 90 minutes is probably the best. Also create some open prompts so that people can surface the decision, the cues, the context. And then the next step is to record, transcribe, of course, with consents, and also to preserving this narrative integrity. And then the next one is to tag those artifacts, okay? So the people can search it, can locate it, okay? So, and then we need to integrate it into the KM system with some kind of stewardship, someone to can review those story, and also someone will deal with the privacy issue, etc., etc. If there's some really very confidential stories, then maybe we can create some kind of well, either we just remove the names, okay, so that people cannot trace who's that person, or if it's really very confidential, maybe we can create some kind of access right, people at a certain role or something like that who can access those stories. But try not to do it, because otherwise it will uh, defeat the purpose of having this knowledge management system. I think there are many ways to try to remove the privacy part. And the last one is about reuse. That's probably the most important part, because wherever we collect, we want to make sure that people reuse it. Okay,
Yeah,
so
and
sorry.
Patrick, there is a question also
Okay,
from Manassi. I mean, what drives curiosity from users to go and listen to these stories or to access them? So, what's the incentive for people to, yeah, listen to stories or even, I mean, access other type of knowledge that
uh,
were captured?
okay, good question. I think it's important to cultivate this kind of organizational learning culture. So the company need to encourage their staff. Yes, we are professional, we know a lot, but we need to keep on learning, especially learn some tricks about try to avoid some mistake or some better way of doing things. I know some company, they even have some kind of performance, they use performance appraisal. For example, they want to encourage people to share the knowledge. They create some kind of, in the performance appraisal, they measure like how many times you share your knowledge or how many times you reuse the knowledge. That may not work, because some people feel that that's very rigid or something like that. But I do know that in some company, they realize situation that they actually measure how many, how people, how often people share the knowledge and how people reuse the knowledge. Okay, so
Okay,
but I think the most important is to cultivate the kind of learning culture within the company. Yeah. Mhm.
and also related to culture, I mean, you've applied this approach so in Hong Kong context. Do you think
Yeah.
it will also easily apply in other culture or in other context, or do you think there is a potentially a cultural component to it to take in
I
consideration?
Yes, I think there will be some boundary condition. I will not say, oh yeah, this method will be 100% applied. That will be like, I will be like just overly exaggerated. I would say there will be some boundary condition, especially in some culture, um, where they have this hierarchy. Okay, so you can imagine if someone have hierarchy, the junior may not be willing to share the story in front of the senior, so that they don't want to make fool of themselves or something like that. So I think probably we need to some kind of adjustment in different culture, but um, the most important thing is to cultivate not only learning, but also this no rain. Because if you try to, when someone share their mistake and and you start to pointing finger and try to find who is the scapegoat, who is the one to be fired, and all this kind of thing, that ruin the whole thing. It won't work. So I think other than learning the kind of no brain culture is we need to be cultivating that in the organization. Not easy because I mean people I can tell you a story. I think it's probably a real story. I heard from someone long time ago. The company 3M. So this guy he worked in investment or something like that. He one day he make a mistake. I think the mistake cost the company $3 million. So of course this guy feel very unsettling knowing that, oh, is the company going to sack me? So one day the CEO is going to visit his office. So he know, oh, that's no good. He's visiting the office. Probably he just give me the letter, say you are fired or something like that. So he become very brave. He approached the CEO, said, "Oh, Mr. CEO, I'm sorry that I make this mistake and cost the company $3 million. Are you going to sack me?" And the CEO looked at him and said that, "No, I'm not going to sack you because I want everyone in the company to learn from your mistake so that this mistake will not happen again within the company." So, yep, that's, I think, um, we need to have this kind of brave culture because we always try to say, oh, who make the mistake, who need to go. But I think if you think about the story, I just shared the 3M story. Actually, there's, I mean, something behind. If someone really make the mistake, maybe we can just make use of it and so that no one will repeat the same mistake again. So I think probably that's more important. So
Okay,
we
so
got,
we are running a bit out of time. Do you
oh,
want
right.
have a last slide to wrap
Okay,
up?
sure, sure. I'm sorry, because I can't see my clock, so that's why.
Okay. That's
Okay,
fine. I
let
mean,
me.
it's very passionate. I mean, it's very nice to listen to you, but I know some people may have follow-up meetings, so just
Okay,
maybe if
understand.
you wanna wrap
Okay,
up. Thank
so
you.
this slide is about the seven takeaway. So basically, tacit knowledge is carried in cues, in judgment, in coordination. So not just in the lessons lead. Storytelling capture the context and also the emotion, and so that why storytelling is so powerful. And the next one is storytelling is basically, I can say, is a data with structure so that we can tag this artifact so that people can reuse it. Okay. And for storytelling is designed for reuse. Okay. So we have this reuse ritual. Um, Invest in facilitation, psychological safety, especially when people try to share their safety or failure stories. Create some kind of governance to look at stewardship, privacy choice, review cycle, etc. And also try to measure the reuse early and to connect the over outcome over time. Okay, so we have some leading indicator like how many people search it, people uh, view it, etc. But we also what we call the lagging indicator, which is how people actually use the story and change their practice and make life better. Okay, so this is nothing. So basically, the closing statement is what story would prevent your next repeated mistake. Okay, so think about the story that can help you to prevent from making the next repeated mistakes. So the last page, this QR code is the paper that you can download freely because it's open access, which I published in this year in the International Journal of Construction Management. So today's presentation is basically based on this paper. So you can look at the full paper and get more information. I'm sorry that I overrun, so please feel free to ask me any question if you have.
Yes, thank you so
So
much,
let me stop.
Patrick. And I think we'll once you share the slide, I mean, I will recommend people to get in touch directly with you to if they have follow-up question and so on. I know we are running a bit out of time, but if some of you want to
Okay.
take the microphone and ask directly a question, please do so. Otherwise, we will close the sessions. Any burning question? Anyone? I made a long list of questions.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah, I will maybe ask them offline. Do you I mean, do you think that AI can play an important role in
Yes.
helping to identify this, or maybe helping to even interview I mean, the people, or frame the stories, or see
Mm.
pattern in between stories?
Yes, definitely. AI can help us to summarize the story, to transcribe, to help us to tag the story, etc., etc. So it's very powerful. But I will say that AI can assist us, and human will be the one who approve to make sure the ethics and all these different issues. Definitely, AI is very useful in helping in try to elicit the kind of tacit knowledge from these stories, but human remain in the driver's seat.
Wonderful. So thank you so very much, Patrick, for this great presentation and for
Yeah.
this great research.
Mhm.
Is it something you keep working on,
Yes,
this
yes.
topic? Okay.
I'm working on so many different things. So yes,
Okay.
definitely my passion on knowledge management is continuous. So I don't think I will stop. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So I really encourage all of you to directly connect with Patrick and follow up the conversation offline, and we will share of course, the link and the slide and the link to the paper in the by email and also through the WhatsApp group. Thank you
Mm,
all again for joining today, for staying a bit later than
mm,
expected, and
yeah.
again, many thanks, Patrick, for staying
Mm,
up very
thank you.
late and for your wonderful presentation today.
Mm.
Thank you all. Bye
Okay, thank
bye,
you, Vince, and thank you, everyone. So all the best.
and see you all on September 10th for the with Slajana Cabrillo that will talk about the future of intellectual capital. We'll
Mm,
send you a reminder. No worries. Thank you all.
okay,
Bye
thank
bye.
you. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.